Hi TikTok. So I got this book at Five Below yesterday, and this is how far in I got, and I felt really compelled to read it on TikTok. So I think I'm gonna do like 2 chapters in a video because they're like 4-page long chapters. But there's a lot of information in here that I didn't even learn in school, and I just think that it would be really helpful for folks to know how things are, how things work, where it all started, and all that kind of stuff. And we should be knowing this, especially right now. So if you're wanting this, it's at Five Below. They also have a copy of the Constitution in book form at Five Below too. So yeah. So the first chapter is about the Mayflower Compact and the colonial government. And when I was reading it, they do use the word Indians, but I know that they are Native Americans. So take that with a grain of salt. Also, with that being said, if there's anything in here that's like a slur that I'm unaware of, I am apologizing in advance. I'm just reading the book, and I am ignorant to some things, and I'm aware of that, and that's why I'm reading this book. So if you see or if you hear anything that is not great, feel free to let me know. So the beginning of self-rule. The story of American government dates back to the earliest settlement of North America. Our grade school textbooks taught us that the first settlers were religious separatists who came to America to escape the Church of England. Some did seek religious freedom, others sought a new beginning, and still others were simply attracted to adventure. A few were even fortune seekers. Early arrivals. The earliest English settlement took place at Roanoke Island, North Carolina. Established by English explorers in the mid to late 1580s, the Roanoke Island colony is best remembered for its mysterious and sudden demise. We know about that. The British government set up a trading post at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. Although the colony managed to survive for 2 decades, it had to contend with harsh conditions and hostile Native Americans. Jamestown did leave an important legacy, however. The colonists adopted a representative assembly to govern their affairs. The year 1620 saw the establishment of a colony in New England when the Puritans crossed the Atlantic and landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The Crown did not charter these pilgrims, rather they were fleeing England in search of freedom to practice their religion. Before Plymouth, the New World wasn't the first haven the Puritans sought. Before setting out from England for America, the Puritans made their way to Holland. They lived there from 1606 to 1620, but found the Dutch language hard to understand and the relatively free ways of the Netherlands not to their liking. After much negotiation with various English and Dutch companies, they received a grant of land in the Virginia Territory. However, they missed their destination and instead arrived first at Cape Cod and subsequently at Plymouth Bay. Before touching land, 41 men on board their ship, the Mayflower, signed the Mayflower Compact, a social contract that bound them to obey the territory of whatever government was established on the land. Though the compact wasn't a constitution, it did have a profound impact on future generations of colonists because it established the precedent that any governing authority in the New World requires the consent of the people. Let me reread that. Though the compact wasn't a constitution, it did have a profound impact on future generations of colonists because it established the precedent of that any governing authority in the New World requires the consent of the people. This powerful notion would spread throughout the colonies. Having undertaken the glory of God and advancements of Christian faith and honor of our King and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia do by these presents, solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends foresaid, aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time, as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promised all due submission and obedience. From the Mayflower Compact. The colonies flourish. Settlements in Virginia and Massachusetts Bay were swiftly followed by some more ships from England bearing colonists. By 1732, all of the original 13 colonies were established. Though technically governed by London, the colonies enjoyed an enormous amount of autonomy. All 13 had particularly elected legislators that passed laws, levied taxes, and set policy. And each also had a formal governing document that resembled a constitution. For instance, Connecticut had the fundamental orders, Pennsylvania passed the frame of government, and Massachusetts adopted the body of liberties. Kinds of colonies. From the point of view of the government, the American colonies fell into three categories. New Hampshire, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina were royal colonies, which had royal governors appointed by the king. The governor could call a local assembly to which he acted as an advisor. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland were proprietary colonies, in which the governor was appointed by the Lord Proprietor rather than the king. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut were charter colonies in which legislative functions stemmed from letters patent, a legal type of written instrument issued by the crown. Massachusetts changed in 1684 from a charter colony to a royal colony. Given its vast distance from the New World and its abiding interest in commerce with the colonies, Britain found the system of home rule equally agreeable. Prelude to a revolution. Relations between the colonies and Britain remained smooth through the mid-1750s until the French and Indian War. Although ultimately victorious, the tremendous cost of waging the 7-Year War left England virtually bankrupt. Parliament decided to replenish Britain's treasury by taxing the colonies, something it hadn't done before. Beginning in 1763, the British Parliament imposed a series of taxes and demands on the colonies, including the Sugar Act, the Townshend Acts, the Quartering Act, and the Stamp Act. The colonies rather rallied around the idea of no taxation without representation and began to boycott British goods, effectively forcing the British Parliament to repeal the taxes except for a tax on tea. For the first time, the colonies had acted in unison to thwart Britain's will. This was an important first step toward gaining independence. That's the first chapter, and I'm 7 minutes in. So maybe I'll just do one chapter this time.